After a brief recession due to COVID, the luxury goods market in the US rebounded in 2021 and is poised to match pre pandemic levels by the end of this year. This week, we are going to talk through all of the luxury trends that you need to know that are shaping the future of retail real estate. You guys are watching Everything We Know About Retail, and it is the show where we tell you everything that we know about retail, often three things at a time. We broadcast live on the internet most Thursdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. But if you're interested, you can watch us anytime at everythingweknow.show. My name is Ebere Anokute, and I'm coming to you live from New York. And I'm joined by Keisha Virtue. Welcome, Keisha.
Hello, happy to be here as always, Ebere.
Happy to have you here, Keisha. You are coming to us from Florida. So tell us quickly,
Yes.
how are you doing? How is the weather down there? Because we're hearing a lot on the
Whew.
news about this Hurricane Ian, right?
Yeah, Ian was a very big deal here. Fortunately, I'm in southeast Florida, so we didn't get hit very badly, just tropical storm conditions. So it's pretty
Yeah,
dry and sunny right now, but feeling it for my West Coast Florida brothers and sisters because it really was very rough and I have family
I'm
there.
sure.
But so everybody's okay that I know of. So
Okay, that's good to hear. That's very good to hear. Quick tangent, but I was on TikTok and I'm scrolling through TikTok, and for me at least, they'll show a bunch of different videos, and then there will be an ad, and then there will be a live video, so someone can go live. And every live video last night was someone in Florida
yeah,
recording. So, like, the devastation
flooding.
and
Yeah,
the
it's terrible.
flooding.
Yeah,
It's really, really intense. But, this is not a weather show, Keisha. I'm sorry. This is a retail show. Okay.
correct.
You and
Correct.
I both research retail and real estate for JLL. And today we are going to be talking through some of the major takeaways from our brand new report, which is called For the Love of Luxury. It was just released last week, and that means that I'm actually going to do a little bit of a different spin on this week's episode, Keisha, right? So
Okay.
usually we are doing everything we know about retail, but this week we're doing everything we know about luxury. Okay.
I like
So,
it, Ebere.
so are you ready?
I am ready. So my first question is, I know that you love luxury, first of all, so I think the report title is very apt for the love of luxury. But tell
Agreed.
me, what's the first thing you know about luxury?
Keisha, honestly, I thought you would never ask. The first thing that we know about luxury is that luxury sales rebounded to 64 billion in
Oof.
2021, right? So COVID obviously caused a recession across all categories, right? Except for maybe grocery and home improvement, right?
Exactly.
Every retail category was impacted by COVID, and there were decreased sales as a result. During that time, we saw the luxury market worldwide decrease by 15% in 2020, and the US market decreased by about 14% in that same year. So what we're looking at here from Statista is overall luxury goods revenue in billions, and we can see that we were on a fairly upward trajectory prior to the pandemic, and then as can be expected, we dropped down a little bit to around 59 billion in 2020. There were so many lockdowns across the country. We weren't, and obviously luxury. Maybe it depends who you ask, Keisha, but some people might not think of luxury as an essential business, right? And so, for that reason, those locations were closed, and they were not able to reach the same sort of sales that they had expected and been reaching, in years prior. And we saw that a lot of the major luxury conglomerates suffered. It's interesting to think of the luxury industry in that sense, because I think before I really started paying attention to it, I was just thinking like, oh yeah, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Balenciaga, whatever. But then once you dive a little bit deeper, you see how Gucci is caring, right? Louis Vuitton is LVMH, and there's really some titans in the industry. So I think those were really helpful bellwethers to see how the industry was doing, was to see how these conglomerates were doing, and they really suffered. All right, so LVMH was down 16.8%, Kering was down 17.5%, and Capri Holdings, which houses Jimmy Choo, Michael Kors, and Versace, was down almost 27%. So very, very rough times for the industry. However, Keisha, in 2021, The year after, we saw that the industry rebounded stronger than almost any other retail sector, right? Sales increased by almost 9% to come in at 64 billion, which is just 7% below 2019 levels. And as you can see from this chart here, we are forecasted to not just reach 2019 levels by the end of this year, but to continue growing for the next 5 years. So although we came from a very difficult place, the the rebound is well underway. I think we lost Keisha. I think we might have lost Keisha here. And I am not on Teams to recover. But listen, we move. I have a feeling she'll jump back in very quickly. So, like I said, the sales, there she goes. I knew it.
I am so sorry. We're still experiencing power outages as a result of the
Wow.
storm. Yes.
Wow.
So
That's some
my
real time hurricane. Keisha, you are you're a what do they call that? Storm finder?
yeah,
Storm
a
chaser?
storm chaser. Yeah, I'm right in the thick of it. Yeah.
You're in the eye of the storm. Thank you for your brave work, Keisha. We really
Yeah.
do appreciate your
Anything for
contributions.
retail.
We love that. That's the name of the next show. Anything for retail.
Ex-
This is everything
I
we
think
know.
that's a very good title. I'm not
Absolutely.
sure where I lost you, but let me ask you a quick question to interject. We talk
Please.
a lot about luxury, but when we talk about luxury, what are we talking about exactly?
Hmm.
Very.
Excellent question, Keisha. And that's something that when I was in the process of collecting data for the report, that was the first question I asked the people, the brokers that I interviewed, right? Was what do you consider luxury? And
Hmm.
what I found out is that it's unfortunately there is no clear-cut answer, you know? I've always thought that there's a very intangible quality to name recognition, right?
Yeah.
You either have heard of something or you haven't. Or
Yeah.
you can lie if you have heard of it and say you haven't to try to look cool, but you know if you've heard of a brand or a company or not. And that was more or less what the answer I got from people I asked was, you know it when you see it, right?
There's definitely a je ne sais quoi about luxury, but I did find a super cool shorthand definition online, which was
Let's see it.
high price, high quality, and high exclusivity. And I love it. I think that's really simple, and I think it does really define a lot of the retailers we focus on for luxury.
Absolutely. I love that, Keisha. I wish I should have put that in the report somewhere. That's an amazing, succinct definition of luxury, especially the exclusivity portion, right? Like that it's the price, but also you what they offer is something that you can't get anywhere else, right? Whether
Exactly.
it's clothes or even just the ambiance in the store, it's unique to these retailers. So that's a perfect definition. Can you say it again for the fans in the back that didn't hear?
High price, high quality, and high exclusivity.
High
Those are the
price. I'm
three.
I'm taking notes. High price, high quality, high exclusivity. I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I mean that's sort of my take on what luxury is. I feel like it's something that you know when you see, and there's a lot of established names. And what makes it difficult is that it's kind of hard for newer brands to break into that echelon, just
Right.
because some of the established brands have been around for so long that it's almost like it's almost like a club very few people can get into.
It's
So
just so true.
very, very interesting.
Talking to
But
brands that are like over 100 years old, it's crazy, right?
exactly, exactly. It's who can really compete with that. But when we talk about the way in which the luxury market rebounded in the U.S., there's a couple of reasons behind that that we discuss in the report. So the first is something I'm literally a broken record, Keisha. Please forgive me for saying this for what might be the 800th time. But because of the consumer base that luxury draws
Exactly.
from in the US, the COVID recession saw most of the job losses come from the food and hospitality sector as opposed to
Mhm.
the financial services sector like previous recessions. And as a result, those high earning office using individuals had a lot of discretionary income. The savings rate spiked last May. And so there were multiple rounds of government stimulus. And so all of that contributed to, the ability to focus discretionary income on luxury goods. And we saw that as a result. So that's one reason that I think.
Right.
The other reason that I think was part of this rebound was the reopening of physical stores,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Thankfully, these consumers were very have very robust online presences, and that was how they were able to maintain a lot of their business during COVID. However, this graph that we see right here comes from Placer, and they produce like a luxury retail index where they track visits to 100 different brands across the country, including all the ones you would think of: Chanel, Gucci, Saint Laurent, Louis Vuitton, stuff like that. And what they saw was that luxury retail visits returned to pre-pandemic levels or exceeded pre-pandemic levels by July of 2021, as soon as those restrictions were lifted.
Right.
So while we had these, we were only allowed to go to shop at essential businesses and stores. Once those restrictions were lifted, especially I would imagine in places where the restrictions were not as uh, thorough as they might have been in New York or maybe in California, once that was lifted, it was very clear that shoppers were eager to return to these physical locations. And obviously, you can see from the graph that these numbers fluctuated a little bit towards the end of the year as a result of the Omicron variant,
Right.
which that might still be out. Who knows, Keisha? I don't know
I have no idea.
I don't know what variant we're on at this point.
Yeah.
Could be Omicron, could be Lambda. Who's to say? But
Yeah.
because of that, visits to the in-store to the stores fluctuated a little bit. But they eventually, by 2022, Placer reported that they have surpassed pre-pandemic levels every month so far this year. So,
Wow.
in my opinion, I feel like that tells me a pretty clear story about there is something about being able to shop in person that is part of the luxury experience, and that
Absolutely.
definitely contributed to the industry's rebound. Would you agree, Keisha?
Definitely. It's definitely a high touch industry for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And all of that resulted in the US comprising 33% of worldwide luxury spending in 2021, which is up from the 22% that they accounted for in 2019, right? This graph comes from Bain and Company. They produce a very comprehensive luxury goods report every year. That was a really helpful source for our own report.
Hmm.
And they obviously, China accounted for a large chunk of shopping prior, and all of the
Hmm.
years since. This is the first year that the US surpassed them since 2015. And
Wow.
obviously, China had really strict lockdown restrictions.
Yes. Yes.
Right. I'm pretty sure they still do, frankly.
Yeah.
I have a friend who is starting a graduate program in Beijing now, and he was documenting on his Instagram the process of like entering the country and having to quarantine in a hotel for 10 days and
Oof.
get tested every single day, have his meals brought to him with no choice. It's a very, they take it very
Very
seriously, as they
seriously. Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
Yeah, as they absolutely should. So that is why China accounted for so little. Obviously, that's not going to be the case forever going forward. So we do foresee that the Chinese consumers are going to be the major buyers and players when it comes to luxury goods in the long term. But we cannot deny, Keisha, that there is a serious love for luxury in the United States, right? I mean, we saw that happen here in 2021. And like we saw from the first graph, 2022 is only going to be more of the same.
Definitely. And I imagine that when tourism comes back fully, we're going to see those Chinese luxury shoppers entering New York again and spending a lot of money.
Oh, yeah,
So, very interested to see what those numbers will look like when they come.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Ebere, can you tell me anything about luxury retailers expanding their footprint?
Keisha, of course I can. That's the second thing that we know about retail. Luxury retailers have been opening new stores all over the country. So let's just get right into this slide. This is a chart. I mean, all of these graphs and charts are available in our luxury report. For the love of luxury, available now at jll.com slash jlretail.com. You can go to JLO Retail LinkedIn. The website's constantly changed. It's not my
Yeah,
fault. I know where the report
I'm
lives. I
here with
have
you,
it
Ebere.
before.
Yes,
Thank
totally.
you, Keisha. So here, let's dive into this a little bit. So these, first of all, I want to highlight that I had a lot more to choose from. These we called it notable, right? So
Hmm.
these are the biggest names I could find in the most interesting locations, but there were a lot of deals to choose from. So just really underscoring how active the industry is right now. I feel like there's so much buzz about luxury and luxury deals being done, and so we're really excited to see some of these. Obviously, these are from, I would say, maybe Q3 2021 to present. But had I included all the ones that I saw in the first 3 quarters of 2021, this list would be twice as long because they've been that active. So I wanted to click through quickly some of the locations that we see here. So I mean, obviously, Hermes announced that they're going to combine their men's and women's stores on Madison Avenue in New York City into one large Hermes mega store,
It's-
45,000 square feet.
wow.
Definitely the largest deal that I saw by far. But Hermes has been very active, right? So they also opened a new outpost in Williamsburg, which, if
Nice.
you ask me, Keisha, that sounds like a new prime retail corridor to me. Right?
Yeah, it certainly appears that way.
Absolutely. There's so many new retailers going there. That's been the case for a while, but in recent months, Hermes, I know Google opened a new storefront over there. So gonna definitely keep my ear to the streets as far as what's going on in Williamsburg. But then Hermes is also going to Austin, right? Austin, Texas. They're going to South Congress Street, which is obviously the main retail corridor in Austin. But they're going to be the first luxury brand to open on South Congress. So
Wow.
we'll see how they do when it comes to placemaking. Maybe in 2 years, South Congress will be the new luxury destination in the South, right? We'll see how that goes. And Hermes definitely has that sort of power where it could
Yeah.
make a new location, pop. I mean, Austin's been popping, but when it comes to luxury, Hermes could definitely do that.
So, Ebere, what's your perspective on these luxury retailers moving into suburbs?
Into suburbs, yeah, Keisha, I feel like that's where their consumer is, right? Or
Hmm.
that's where they think they're going to find their consumer. So a chart that you produce all the time that is very helpful and that I use every single day is the Placer foot traffic chart, which shows how uh, foot traffic to suburban malls has fully recovered from the to pre-pandemic levels, whereas every other category that has to do with like urban foot traffic is still has some ways to go, right? I'd say the three other categories, which are it's suburban malls, urban malls, uh, urban corridors in central business districts, and
Right.
urban corridors in residential neighborhoods. And so
Exactly.
all three of those urban locations they're anywhere from 17 to 25% off of pre-pandemic levels, while
Hmm.
suburban malls are, right there. So, it was a common story that we saw throughout the pandemic was people leaving these urban centers where it was too dense. We were all getting sick, right?
Yeah.
And moving away to,
True.
the suburbs and or other parts of the country like the Sun Belt and other places in the South. That
Don't I know
definitely,
it? Yeah.
yeah, Keisha,
We're
I
all
know.
moving to Florida, right?
I'm
So,
sure. How is that? I'm sure that's been. Have you noticed like more traffic or anything in the last like year?
oh, yes, there's
Really?
definitely been a lot more traffic, particularly on I-95, as anyone who lives in Florida can attest. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I feel like I'm. Traffic is such an interesting question, right? 'Cause I
Yeah.
feel like every major city thinks that they have the worst traffic, but I wonder where the worst traffic really is, right? Like, I'm guessing. I think it might be LA. Just from what I've experienced,
Yes. Yes.
that was the most difficult traffic. But again, I hear that same sentiment as far as new people coming in and the roads are all congested
Hmm.
from a lot of different places. So to answer your question, these luxury tenants going in the suburbs, they're just going where the money is, right? Retail
Yeah.
has to go where the people are if they're
Exactly.
smart. And we saw people leave the cities and go to the suburbs and to the south. And there has been sort of a return, right? Some people have definitely come back to the cities as offices have gone from remote to hybrid to some of them fully in person. But overall, still, it makes sense that they would target their expansion in these other ancillary areas where they didn't have a presence before and where their consumer lives now. So,
I do think it makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, I mean the I didn't list any of those sort of locations on this list, right? But please rest assured that I know there's buzz about Gucci opening in like El Paso, Texas. There was Chanel opening in Nashville.
Yeah.
Also major cities in their own right, but that we definitely see these luxury retailers when it comes to activity, they're not afraid to mix it up and go somewhere new, which is how they're going to stay afloat. So
True.
let's see. So let's click through some of these. Here we have
Oh.
this picture is from the inside of the Los Angeles Louis Vuitton men's store. Right, this
Hmm.
sculpture is called the Giant Man, and it's actually it's an art piece that was commissioned isn't the word, maybe originated by Virgil Abloh, who is the late creative director of that brand. So a nice little testament and homage to him in this store. They opened
Very
this
nice.
location on Rodeo Drive, not too far from their Dior store. So LVMH has really put down some roots or some more roots in the Los Angeles area.
Nice.
Here we have Chanel. Chanel is in the design district in Miami. They opened last December down there. And I believe this was, let's just go back to the chart. This was a 7,600 square foot location.
Nice.
So they're across 2 floors, really beautiful. This just looks like their aesthetic to me, right? Especially
Hmm.
on the inside. Keisha, tell me about the design district. Is that a place that you find yourself often? Like, what is your impression of the design district, as someone who lives in South Florida?
I do love the design district. I think it's just such a wonderful walkable development. But I do not get down there very often.
Right.
One, because I'm probably not the luxury shopper,
Fair.
generally speaking, and two, it's like an hour and a half away with Miami traffic. So I
Okay.
don't find myself down there too often, but I do think it's a wonderful addition. Um, Luxury brands are going to do well in South Florida. Bala Harbor Shops, as we well know, was like had one of the highest sales per square foot of the entire country. So
Right.
having design district with all these ultra luxury retailers just makes sense. Miami luxury consumers love to show brands. They love to show the
Right.
brands. Yeah, they're very. It's all about the brands. It's all about being seen,
Oh yeah.
and so it makes total sense to have something as strong as a design district down there for sure.
Yeah,
Chanel
definitely.
is a good addition.
I can imagine. Yeah, we went once. We had our team trip to
Yeah,
Miami before the pandemic, so that was my first time there, and it's a really beautiful, walkable, like you
it
said,
is.
sort of development. It almost feels like it belongs in Miami, but it feels like it was plopped out of, like, I don't know, the Jetsons. I don't. It was just, it feels like just the
Right?
architecture and everything is just so
Yeah.
like futuristic. You're just like walking in Miami, and all of a sudden the buildings look, just like Hudson Yards or something like.
Yes.
Just a
Oh
gorgeous
my
area.
goodness. Exactly.
Yeah, so Chanel is going to do very well there, of course.
Mhm.
And then another recent opening was Givenchy. They came to Soho, so they already have one location in the Plaza District.
Mhm.
I'm not positive. I think it's on Madison Avenue. I don't think it's on Fifth Avenue. And this is their first location downtown in New York City. So very
Nice.
exciting news here. Again, I love looking at any image we can get of the interior of these places, because I really
Yes.
just it just shows so much, like, that there's so much thought that goes into the aesthetic of these places, because that's what they're selling. They're selling their
Exactly.
aesthetic. They're
Mhm.
selling their vibes almost. So when I
Yes.
when I see these places, and I'm just like, I love the thoughtful curation. I love that there's only one of every type of shirt, right? Like, if you need something in your size, you're gonna have to engage them in some because the people in there are salespeople, right? They're not
Yeah.
just folding clothes. They're trying to make a sale, reach margins, hit quotas. So it's a very I don't know, I just always feel transported when I walk into one
Yeah.
of these locations.
I feel I feel like I'm in the spotlight, I guess, because so much more than just getting the sale. It's what I think I read that it's called clienteling, because
Oh
what they're
yeah.
trying to do is establish a long-term relationship with you that starts right then and there and continues. So it's not just like, "Oh, I'm looking for this today," but like, what are what do you like overall? How can
Right.
we market to you in a very in touch way, I guess, over
Yeah.
time?
No, you're spot on, Keisha. I feel like the way that these brands have been able to have success is by differentiating themselves, right? So
Precisely.
the Chanel shopper isn't necessarily the Balenciaga shopper, right? The
Mhm.
Ralph Lauren shopper isn't necessarily the Givenchy shopper, right? And so they really do focus on building those relationships. And honestly, it makes sense, because if I had $1,000 to spend on a shirt, I would definitely do it at the place where they were nicest to me versus the place where I don't know anyone there. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
understand the idea of building those relationships. Very, very, very good stuff. And
Yeah.
so obviously there's a lot of store openings we could go through, a million, but a couple other ones I wanted to shout out just because I read about them very recently. Right, we talked last week on the show about Ralph Lauren opening 250 stores in the next 3 years, focusing on San Francisco, Denver, and there was another, might have been Seattle, or maybe Seattle, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Mm,
those are they highlighted 14 markets, but those are the three ones where they wanted to start with. I also read today that Cartier is going to, or they have intentions to increase their store count by 10% in the next five
oh,
years,
hmm,
which they currently have 270 stores. So adding roughly 30 stores, right? 27 is in the next 5 years is very, I think, realistic,
yeah.
I won't say Ralph Lauren is being unrealistic. I'll just say that's
That's quite a
ambitious.
number. Yeah,
That's a lot
for
of
sure.
stores. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last new one I wanted to call out is Courage. So Courage is
Ooh.
a sort of an emerging French luxury brand. They have started to present their collections at Paris Fashion Week every single season, and it's definitely newer, but
Mhm.
is really gaining sort of cachet in the industry. And I think this sort of cements their status as a luxury brand as their new 1,000 square foot store in Soho, right?
Ah.
Keisha, you can't. What are you going to sell out of 1,000 square feet, right? You can sell a lot, right? You definitely can sell a lot, but they're not built. They didn't open that store because they want to sell out of it, right?
Yeah, I'm
That
still looking
location.
for the for the items.
Oh.
Yes. I'm just like looking at the picture. I'm like, where
Well,
are the clothes?
no, it's a very beautiful mirrored aesthetic, and I'll say, having
Yeah.
watched a couple of their fashion shows, they use that mirrored aesthetic in their fashion shows as well. Like they'll have the models walk around like a big square mirror on the floor, so
Huh.
that's part of it. But this, I think, is a perfect example of a brand having a touch point. Right, they're an
Right.
emerging brand. They know that they want to be in a big international city, but they might not have the capital to open a super large store, and it might not make sense for them because, again, some people might not know who they are. So we start with 1,000 square feet right in the middle of Soho. Whoever walks by and says, "What's going on with all these mirrors?" will come in and get some of the latest fashion. So, Keisha, those are the
Oh, there
clothes
we
you were
go.
looking
There are
for.
the clothes.
I,
Ah,
I had it queued
big
up. I'm like,
items. Yeah.
trust me, I got it. Yeah. Again, right? That's called curation. They said, don't worry about everything else. This is the
Hmm.
jacket you need to focus on right now. So,
Thankfully, I like white. Yeah.
exactly, you better, right?
Yeah.
Because there are many other options. But yeah, so obviously we see a lot of luxury stores opening in the next couple of years, a lot of announcements. So it's definitely a very pivotal moment for the luxury retail real estate industry.
Fascinating,
Yeah.
Ebere. What predictions do you have going forward for the future of luxury trends?
Well, Keisha, that would be our third thing that we know about retail, which is the trends that are shaping the future of luxury retail and real estate. And
Ah.
there are actually three. So, again, I'll just do one more plug for our report. For the love of luxury, and you can read some our detailed takeaways at the end of the report. It's on the last page, but quickly I'll talk through some of them. So, number one, e-commerce, right? It's
Yes,
how they
absolutely.
were able to stay afloat during the pandemic, and it's a story that we've seen for a long time, right? As e-commerce penetration continues to grow, which according to Bain, the online luxury market doubled from 2019 to 2021, we're going to see that turn into a re-emphasized importance of the physical storefront, right?
Hmm.
I think as we got out of the, Amazon e-commerce disruption conversation, and we sort of all were able to agree, and maybe I'm in an echo chamber, but it felt like we all agreed that we need physical stores. We still
Yes.
shop. We still do a lot of shopping in person. I feel like experiential retail became the name of the game. It was almost overstated at a time, which is something that these luxury consumer or retailers have always been on top of.
Hmm.
And so I think it's going to be a similar story as far as the more that online luxury grows, the more that we're going to need to make the physical store a total experience,
Hmm.
which leads to my question to you, Keisha. I'm curious, what do you think is going to be included next in physical stores? I feel like so far we've seen it almost all. We've seen it all. There's almost nothing that they won't put in the store to get people to come in. But what do you think is going to be the next like staple of an experiential retail location?
Wow, that's such an excellent question. And I have like so many theories about what they might possibly include.
Let's hear
I
it.
think stores are going to get even more hyper local than before to really target their local market consumers. And I think that means a lot of storytelling with meaning, particularly since
Right.
I find that it looks like young consumers are really driving this luxury boom, much more than before the under 40 crowd, where it was like 25% before. Now we're looking at 50 to 60% for a lot of brands
Right.
that they're just driving the sales. So, what do young people care about? I mean, how do we interact with them? I mean, I think we did an episode with James where we're talking about some of, I think it was ASOS inside Nordstrom, and they were going to do sneaker cleaning as one of their services. Like,
Right.
it's just, I'm like, it's just, I think putting in all of these really super focused partnerships where they're doing all these incredible services that you wouldn't really expect to find in a store per se, and just adding that and adding a story, adding some sort of meaning behind the space, so you're not just going in and purchasing something, but you're living something, you're discovering something. I think that's it. There you
Absolutely,
go. Hmm.
absolutely. I completely agree. The hyper local aspect of it, that is a way to, because again, that's what the store is, right?
Hmm.
It's supposed to be a touch point for the people in that
Yes.
area or the people that go to that area. So what better way to make the Chanel, design district? I don't know, maybe they have sand in there, right? Who knows? Like, that's how we make
I
it
know. Yeah.
hyper local. I love that. That never occurred to me, but that is definitely the next wave, right? It's going to be the New York. I mean, I don't think they currently look that much the same, but there is a pervasive aesthetic, right? But
Hmm.
the New York stores are going to be looking very different than the LA stores and the Texas stores.
Yeah.
Chanel cowboy hats. I'm sure we're gonna we're definitely gonna
Ex-
do it.
Even with Glossier in Design District, I mean, they
Right.
had like this really cool like Instagram photo booth sort of situation where it's like you're underwater and this whole sea motif. So it was like totally different with the coral and the greens,
Right.
So I do think they are pushing in that direction where they're definitely trying to make it a different experience in each particular city or market.
I love that. I totally agree. I would say from what I was thinking was, and this has already started to happen, but I think we're going to see it happen across the board. I was thinking dining options.
Yes, we're definitely seeing that. I completely agree, especially with RH
Absolutely.
and their rooftop, restaurants and that sort of thing.
That's exactly where I was. That's what came to my mind, because like you almost forget. I mean, I've been to the one in Meatpacking in New York, and you almost forget that it's a furniture store because it's like
Yes.
such a fancy restaurant. And so also when I read, the Dior that they're opening in Los Angeles on Rodeo Drive is going to have a dining option. They were kind of vague about it, but in my head, that's a perfect way to get people to the store, right? Because we have to eat roughly
Exactly.
3 times a day, right?
And it
And
keeps them
so
in there longer because, you're spending some time eating and then you wanna browse and,
have a
yeah.
couple of cocktails, and
Yeah,
then
there
all
you
of a
go.
sudden this dress
Yes.
looks so much prettier after
Exactly, the cocktails.
after two
If
drinks.
that's not selling tool, I don't know what is.
I mean, listen, if they're smart, they'll do that. So I think we're gonna see like a Chanel restaurant. We're gonna see,
Mhm.
Ralph Lauren tried that a few years ago. I know they had a Ralph Lauren restaurant.
Yeah.
So and it's definitely. I think there have been some forays in there, but when it comes to the next, big experiential amenity, I feel like, I remember when the Neiman Marcus in Hudson Yards was open, they have a restaurant, and they had a restaurant in there as well
Mhm.
as, or they had a bar and then a coffee shop in
Yeah,
the
exactly.
actual Neiman
Yeah.
Marcus. So food is a
Yeah.
way to keep people coming to your location and keeping them there.
100%. That'll
Yeah.
get me there for sure.
Same, Keisha.
Yeah.
I would say the second trend. So the first trend was e-commerce, right?
Mhm.
Second trend, you definitely alluded to it, was sustainability, right?
Mhm.
Because the consumer demographics are shifting, right? And millennials and Gen Z are set to comprise over 70% of the luxury consumer base by 2025, which, Keisha, is in 2 years. I don't know if you know.
Whew.
That's coming up.
It just yeah. It's
When I looked at that number, I was like, oh. And then I looked at the date
yeah.
down here and I said,
Yeah,
oh,
we're not far.
not
Mhm.
far away. But by then, it's going to be mostly millennials and Gen Z that's, driving a lot of the sales in these places. And those generations are definitely more conscious and concerned with social issues and the environment than I think we could say previous generations were. A lot of topics are front of mind for them, but they're
Yep.
going to want the brands that they support to also support those, or at least not be the biggest perpetrators of some of
Exactly.
those.
I mean, I had a real problem when I read, years back about these luxury retailers, if they don't sell out all their merchandise, destroying the merchandise just for exclusivity's sake. And I'm like,
Right.
that's such a waste.
Yeah.
It's like it just hurt my feelings. Like I just think sustainability is a very smart move, not just smart, but the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
Recycle, reuse, repurpose. Do what you have to do, but I mean, let's not waste the resources, please.
Yeah. Especially on such a grand scale, right? It's one thing if
Yeah.
you, I, Keisha, throw out a shirt. It's another thing if a corporation throws out 1,000 shirts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's figure out what to do with that. And obviously, the upcoming, target consumers are not even, this is a thought. This is almost front of
Yes,
mind for
it
them,
is
right?
front of mind for
Yeah.
sure. with the
these
younger
those
consumer.
generations, I mean, these retailers can get canceled quickly if they
Yeah.
don't, keep up with what their consumers want. And so I definitely think that that's something for anyone who's interested in the luxury space to be attuned to, right? It's you
Hmm.
can't really look on any publication talking about luxury without there being some conversation about sustainability, which is great, and I think that's how it should be. But it's not a conversation that you can kind of nod and smile and move past. It's going to be
Hmm.
something that we need to deal with, so definitely want to put that on people's radars.
For
And
sure.
then the last thing, in the same vein of sustainability, honestly, the segues here have been just so smooth.
Ah,
Uh,
smooth like
the
butter.
resale industry, right?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
luxury resale has been, really growing in popularity for sustainability reasons, right?
Hmm.
Like we just mentioned, and also because of the cost, of course.
Hmm.
And all of that led to the resale market soaring to $33 billion in 2021. So
Wow,
there's
that's
serious
incredible.
money being spent in this market, and serious opportunity for people to get involved, and especially for our real estate audience, because these luxury resale companies are opening stores, right?
Wow.
I don't think we saw that. Maybe I'm lying, but I mean, there's always been vintage stores, right? There's always been
Yeah, on a
secondhand stores and
smaller
stuff.
scale, yeah.
Yeah, but these guys are we never seen like digitally native retailers in this capacity opening these sort of stores, these secondhand locations, not secondhand resale locations. So
Hmm.
very exciting news for us, right? Because
I think
for
so.
example, Fashion File, which is a big reseller, they opened. I think they do. I'm sure they do clothes, but I think they're known a lot for their handbags and things like that.
Interesting.
They opened a 60,000 square foot authentication and store location in Chelsea in New York City, which is gigantic, obviously for
Nice.
a retail location. And then another one, the Real Real, which is probably one of the most preeminent
Hmm.
resellers. They opened their 19th store in Atlanta
Wow.
last year. So this is something that we need to pay attention to, because obviously they're leasing space, so they need brokers to help them with that.
Hmm.
And then also, because of the size of some of these leases, because again, the nature of what they're doing there, it's not the same thing as like one of these stores that we clicked through earlier, where they're trying to sell you the tiniest little shirt you can ever imagine, for $3,000. They're trying to not just offer you some of their goods, but go through the goods that they've received to make sure that they're of the quality that they profess, right? So because of
Exactly.
that, they're taking large chunks of space, and I feel like I at least infer, is that the right word, that they could be a potential backfiller of space for like department stores, right? Because what
It's
other
interesting. Yeah.
retail category is that size and would be able to, with low capex, move into those locations, right? We're not talking about converting a store to a restaurant or something where we need
Yeah.
venting and things like that. We can easily take a department store that, old Macy's or an old Sears, and turn it into the new Fashion File for 60,000 square feet somewhere else. So I definitely think that when we talk about that second generation space that we're trying, although, vacancy is pretty low across the country. So,
Yeah.
fundamentals are pretty strong right now. Let's
Depends
keep them
on,
there.
yeah, it definitely depends on the market. And then
Right.
my question is about the co-tenancy clauses that may be in effect. I wonder if there are any
Mm.
co-tenancy or if there are going to be any co-tenancy clauses about, some of these resale sites being close to actual original stores, or they're going to have to go in separate centers or something.
I
It's
wonder. Yeah,
interesting.
that's true. We talked about that, I think, when it comes to like in the malls, right? With like the
Mhm.
food court
Yeah.
operators, and you can have a Mexican restaurant in the same food court as, Chipotle or whatever. So that's a very interesting point. I wonder if that's going to impact it. We'll have to wait and see,
Yeah, we'll have to
see how
wait and see.
it all turns out. So Keisha, I'm sorry to be so annoying, but I have a retail challenge.
I've avoided it long enough. I think, it's been a long time. I miss it, and I hope that I can do it
I
justice.
know we haven't had a retail challenge in a little while, but I said I got to take the chance to, while I have Keisha here, to just, let's see what she knows about luxury. All right,
Mm.
we're gonna test Keisha's brain real quick. So obviously this is the retail challenge. You get a point for every correct answer, and the winner gets a uh, what is it called? An NFT or a GIF of a winner.
Yes.
So let's get into it. We have 3 questions. It's just you, Keisha. It's you against yourself.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
there's a message in that. Just think about
there is.
that. So let's get to the first question this week. So Keisha, we talked a lot about luxury retailers opening new locations, right? And we also, in the report, I detail some familiar corridors and then
Hmm.
some new corridors that have emerged across, the world, frankly. And one of those new corridors is New Bond Street in London, right? We've seen a lot of tenants move from Old Bond Street to New Bond Street.
Okay.
But one of these, I feel like I sound like James. One of
Hmm.
these retailers did not. Okay. Which of these retailers did not open a new location on New Bond Street in London this year? Is it Celine, Balenciaga, or Chanel?
Well, my famous affinity to detail is really going to play in here. Sarcasm intended. Um, okay, I'm going to go with. So hard. I want to say Celine.
Celine. Unfortunately, the
I
answer is
was
Chanel.
going to say Chanel. Went against my better judgment there, yeah.
Right. Chanel has been very active in recent months, especially since the pandemic. They've opened 15 new stores in the U.S., most of them under their beauty brand
Hmm.
this year. But when it comes to New Bond Street, the most recent entrants were Celine and
Okay.
Balenciaga. So all good though. I know you. I saw your process of elimination, so I'm
Hmm.
confident that we're gonna get the next one. Okay.
All right.
So another really active luxury retailer has been Hermes, right? And we talked about Hermes opening these new locations in multiple places, right? But which of these locations that they recently opened was the largest?
Hmm.
Was it Williamsburg? Oh, let me put it up.
Yeah, please.
Williamsburg, Austin, or Madison Avenue?
Largest, huh?
Hmm. I'll give you a hint. It wasn't close. It was largest by almost, I don't know, 6 times.
Oh dear God. This is terrible. Uh, I don't know. Oh, okay. I'm going to throw it. I'm going to throw it out there. I didn't remember anything with Madison Avenue. I remember seeing that. Madison Avenue.
Yes, let's go. Absolutely. Absolutely, Keisha. So we saw on this slide right here, right? So Madison Avenue was 45,000 square feet. The Williamsburg location was around 6,000 square feet, and Austin was 7,000 square feet. So
Okay. So yeah.
Madison Avenue was the winner by far, like I said. So, woo, I mean, note to self or note to us, next time we do this we got to get celebration graphics. I need
Yeah.
to celebrate you when you get the answer right.
I know. We need some like claps
Something, right?
from teams or something. Yeah.
Exactly. So okay, so you are 1-1 right now, Keisha. You're doing really well if you ask me. For the last question, for all the marbles, we talked about the US accounting for the largest share of luxury activity in 2021, right? They
Hmm.
were 33%,
Hmm.
up from 2019.
Hmm.
Which of these countries, it says one of them isn't a country, which of these locations
Mm.
was the second largest? Was it, I mean, I meant to put B and C, obviously, so forgive me, but was it Europe, China, or Japan?
Definitely wasn't Japan. So, let me think about this because I know Europe went up, but I don't know if it's still higher than China. Let me think about this. I'm gonna go with China.
You got it, Keisha. That's
All
a
right.
safe guess no matter
Yeah.
what. Although I will tell you that was a bit of a trick question. So I'm not a nice person because according to the chart, China and Europe were the same.
So,
They were
what
both
kind of
22%. So they were both the second place, thing there. Obviously, those were estimates, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
once the actual numbers are actually broken down, I have a feeling that it would be China as well. But I would have taken Europe or China, Keisha. So
Okay. Wow, very generous. I like it. I like playing the odds.
listen,
I dig
everyone's
that.
we want to win here. Right? I'm not trying to stop
Everybody's a
you.
winner. Take
Listen,
take my participation trophy anytime.
well, Keisha, it sounds like you are the
Ooh,
winner of this week's retail challenge. We're so proud of you.
I am so
You
proud of myself.
as you should be. And that brings us to the end of this week's episode. So I quickly want to remind everyone that you can download all of our latest research reports, as well as, wait for it, our luxury report
That's right.
at jll.com. Just go to the trends and insights section. And the report is right there. If you Google JLO retail, you'll find your way to our research, and you can find all of our reports there, including this one, and as well as the back to school report, which came out a little earlier this month that Keisha put out, as well as the outlook that Keisha also put out. So a lot of content for you guys there. So please be sure to go take it all in. You can also listen to the Where We Buy podcast, where James conducts in-depth audio interviews. You can listen at Where We Buy. Wait for it. Where We Buy .show. There it is. On your favorite podcast app or at wherewebuy.show. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button in YouTube and click on the little bell icon so that you are notified when new shows come out each week, or follow the JLO Retail LinkedIn page on LinkedIn. We will be back next week with a new episode at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. Keisha, first, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Tell me, what did you learn about retail today?
I learned that some luxury retailers have very little clothing inside their stores. It's more like a museum or something.
Absolutely. And I learned, Keisha, what did you say? Oh, I learned that the definition of luxury is high price, high quality, and high exclusivity. And I
That's
love
right,
that.
Ebere.
Absolutely. And if you want to know more about everything we know about retail or luxury, you can join us here next week.
Take care.